Hi, everyone. Rajiv, I don't see you on camera yet, but why don't we give everyone just a minute here to join in? I'm very excited to kick off our webinar. We'll give everyone just 30 seconds here to join in on the webinar. Um, so yeah, very excited to begin here.
Hey, hi, Brooke, you're able to see me, right?
Yes.
Perfect.
Akash, you're also on camera if you want to be on camera. Okay. All right. Why don't we get started? I am very, very excited to kick off our webinar here. I am joined by Rajiv Desai, Global Delivery Head at 1Point1Solutions. Today, we are going to be discussing 5 ways AI is hurting the human touch and how we can solve for some of those challenges moving forward, which I think is such an important topic. So I am very excited to dive in here. Welcome, Rajiv. I will hand things over to you to kick us off.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Brooke. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. I look forward to keeping this as interactive as possible. There's not too much on the slides that I'm going to be presenting, so just hang in there. And if you got any questions after each of the sections that I finish, I'm more than happy to kind of address those queries. And Brooke will be the one to, kind of prompt those questions, and I'll then try and, answer them out. So please go ahead and post your questions and feel free to make it as interactive as possible. So quickly, just diving in, all of us get bombarded with a lot of automated calls these days. Most of us have used the chat platform, and when you finish that conversation or you're in the midst of that conversation, most of the times, at least I personally feel frustrated because it's utterly impersonal. It's kind of trying to box you in what they have tried to force fit in terms of trying to get you to an end of a solution. And it's not natural at all, and that's not how usually you would want to interact or chat with someone, or even speak to someone when you're talking to an automated response or the so-called Gen AI voice agents that are there out there in the market. We all of us are today standing at a critical juncture in this customer experience space. AI promises to deliver efficiency, speed, personalization, but most of them, if not all, get it wrong because they try to rush to automate things very quickly. And this is happening subconsciously. No one is intending to get it wrong, right? But when you make a move in terms of getting this done quickly, you inadvertently try to erode the very essence of great customer experience that we want to build, and which is pretty much at the center of every organization's vision and mission statement. One of the things is very clear, right? AI isn't an enemy. It's an extremely powerful tool. It kind of helps us process vast amounts of data in uh, you know unimaginable times. It can automate repetitive tasks. It can even predict customer needs and trends, and pretty much guide the way or pave the way to make it a truly brilliant customer experience if it is harnessed in the right way and configured in the right way. One of the things that today we are going to be talking about is AI disconnect that leaves customers feeling unheard, unvalued, and ultimately they feel disengaged. It's actually hurting the human touch, and today we're going to be actually talking about some of these issues that the industry is facing, that a lot of our clients that we interact with today are facing. And we're going to be talking about 5 practical ways to fix this imbalance, right? Which ensures that AI enhances rather than diminishing the entire experience that we want to build as a part of our CX strategy or CX journey. So moving on, I'm just going to quickly move on to the first section. Is how is AI hurting the human touch essentially? right? So there are five essential things that I want to talk about here. Most important, which is loss of empathy and the nuance. Uh, what typically is the issue that when we are dealing with a Gen AI solution or an AI solution, it lacks emotional intelligence. It does not understand sarcasm. It does not understand frustration. And that is what kind of breaks the overall journey. Uh, a lot of organizations, are still grappling around and trading off between the accuracy of the responses versus which model to use. There are speech to text models, there are text to speech models, there are speech to speech models, and it's important to strike the right balance. But the minute you try convert a speech to a text, what you're essentially doing is you're boxing yourself by saying that if the customer says something in a sarcastic fashion and says, say for example, I was interacting with a voice bot, and the bot said and gave me a solution of saying that how about we do that tomorrow, or how about we book your flight for tomorrow? Thanks, but I just said I wanted day after tomorrow. Now that's sarcasm right up front there, right? But what will it say is when you convert speech to text, it's going to say that the emotion or the sentiment is positive. And that is what we fall prey to. And that's what I mean by saying that loss of empathy and loss of nuance. How do we solve for it? Obviously, traditional product companies or traditional companies which are doing analysis on speech to text and then trying to run their modeling on top of that are not going to be able to capture that. So you'll have to look at it a little differently, and you'll have to actually look at how can behavior signals, or how can the behavior, the intonations, the pitch, the tonality, the contextuality of the conversation that you're having can help us identify whether it is sarcasm, whether it is frustration, whether it is actually a compliment that is being given to us or to the brand. The second one is, impersonal interaction. It's just another number, and it's like trying to force an associate to actually say that AHT is something that we are tracking on. Please ensure you wind up the call in 30 seconds. And what we're trying to do with AI, not in a like-to-like comparison, but we are unable to deviate from a certain modus operandi in terms of how we are scripting, how we are getting those decision trees, how we are using those IVR trees to force fit the solution to ensure that it comes to a right outcome. And a lot of these organizations that are trying to do that are, really need to understand that you have a lot of tech. You have possibly tried to build everything DIY, and you're actually trying to solve journey or a chat journey. Uh, but it's really frustrating for the customer because he has to answer 15 questions. The beauty about AI and bringing in the human touch is that it does not work with if then else, and it does not work like a decision tree. So you need to ensure that you're balancing it out right and you're curating it right to ensure that it does not feel like you're just doing a transaction, or it's just not a number, and you're trying to create a personalized interaction. The third and the most biggest, I think, a lot of organizations claim to have typically solved for omni-channel experiences, but it is just frustrating when handoffs don't happen in the right way. You're talking to a chatbot, you're talking to a voice bot, you're talking to an IVR. You've tried to explain what your issue is, but the minute you're now getting transferred to a contact center or a physical agent, the context is lost. The transcription of whatever conversation that you've had is not coming in front of the associate, and the customer continuously has to repeat himself. One of the clients, and many of the clients that we speak with, interact with, have the fanciest of the CRMs, have the fanciest of the platforms. But when you look and get deeper into what they've tried to do, none of them are leveraging this rightly. It's not about the tech that they're using, it's about the functionality that needs to come to life. So you need to ensure that when you've invested in a great CRM or an omni-channel platform or a CCaaS solution, you're definitely leveraging the handoff piece very critically, so that when it gets transferred from an IVR or a chatbot or a voice bot to a physical human on the other end, you're actually transferring it along with the conversation or the script that has happened, along with the summarization, so that the customer feels that he does not have to repeat himself. The next one that I want to talk about is, sometimes we are so hell-bent on automating things that you almost want to automate everything. Uh, and at the end of it, you realize that had it been transferred to a human, it would have been solved in a much more faster manner. I think organizations need to consciously take this call uh, in terms of uh, how to automate, what not to automate. And it is extremely critical to understand what to eliminate, what to deflect, and what should be an enriching experience for a customer. That is going to be extremely critical. And the last and the fifth most important point of where is AI hurting the human touch, which I typically call it as the black hole, with not just the external customers, but even the internal customers, which is the employees of an organization, or uh, you as clients or your team members do not understand how the decisioning of an AI is made, which leads to distrust, which leads to confusion. And you need to create an inclusive environment, not just for people around you, but include what you're trying to do on the AI front also as a part of your ecosystem to ensure that the black box effect can completely be avoided. So these are five typical areas where AI is hurting the human touch. And what we will do is we will quickly deep dive into each one of the solutions that we want to talk about, or what is it that you could do in your organizations to get this right to a great extent. Yeah. So the first one and the most important part is how do you strategically delegate? How can you use AI for efficiency and humans for empathy? Again, uh, don't replace humans entirely. Identify tasks that AI can really excel in, whether it's data retrieval, whether it's understanding the FAQ, whether it's basic transactions, whether it's routing, and figure out tasks which you think, as an organization, as a part of your brand promise, where humans can't be replaced. Complex tasks like problem solving, emotional support, building rapport, and one of the examples that comes in is collections for financial institutions that are out there trying to collect the balance is due. If a customer is facing hardship and he's looking at some support, it's important that we bring in the human element right up front there, because he wants to get onto an agreement. He's not a bad customer. He just wants someone to listen to him, understand his problems, and basically try and get a solution for that. Uh, and this is kind of incidental because uh, we also receive a lot of products in terms of saying that how their voice bot is better than anyone else and what is it that they're trying to do. And the call was about four and a half minutes that went on, but the start of the call was, I think, fantastic, right? It went on by saying that you have a certain amount overdue. Let's get going. Let's discuss how can we help you. And the customer said that there's someone in my family who's going through a tough time. He's hospitalized, and because of that, I'm not able to make a payment. Uh, the AI acknowledged it and said that we are willing to work with you. And I was like, wow, that's great. And the customer then said that I'm not going to be able to pay it by the 28th. I need more time beyond that, and I'll try my best to make a payment, but I can't commit anything. The minute it said I cannot commit anything, a little bit of hallucination started. Uh, the AI bot started responding saying, but it's important for you to make that payment, because if you don't, I'm going to report you to the credit bureau. And it's going to impact your ratings. And next time when you ask for a loan, it's going to create trouble for you. And the customer then said, hey, I just told you that I'm going through a difficult time. And can we work through this? And then it just went on and on, spiraling, saying that, almost to an extent of saying, I don't care what your problems are. you need to make a payment, and if you don't, uh, the next steps are going to follow in terms of issuing you a notice, reporting you with the credit bureau. We're going to, look at your credit history. We're going to impact this. We're going to impact that, and it just went on and on. And in my opinion, that completely was not the right way of handling it. And that's why I said it's important to strike the right balance with what type of calls should be handled by AI versus what type of calls needs a human touch right up front there. And that's the point that I was trying to drive. So, how can we free up the human agents or human associates to manage high value transactions, which are critical, which can help them actually reduce the burnout, improve customer satisfaction, and then routing them right to the right resource to get the right outcomes. Uh, when you're getting into this journey, you need to ensure that you're not trying to solve for everything in one go. Take baby steps. Test it, try it, give it simple use cases, build on it, and then try and see how can you add more complexity to that. Most of the organizations, start with the vision of saying, I want to automate 95% of my processes. Well, that's great. If you're able to do everything without anyone having an intervention, that's fantastic. But when you try and solve for that 95 in one go, you're going to be running into problems because you're eliminating or you're compromising upfront, saying that I am not sensitive about how my customers are going to feel about that. So you need to have a well-established ecosystem in terms of understanding where you want to go, how you're going to be taking those baby steps, how are you going to be delegating, what are the processes that you're going to be delegating in terms of driving that efficiency and bringing in humans for getting in the empathy part of it. So that's the first and the most critical part in terms of getting into this ecosystem. I'll just take a quick pause, and if there are any questions at all, Brooke, I'm more than happy to kind of address in this particular section.
Yeah, thanks so much, Rajiv. And I urge everyone on the call to share questions because we are live here and we love your questions. I do have one that I came to the table with because I wanted to dig a little bit deeper here, Rajiv. And our latest research points to this idea, this whole webinar is focused on, which is the fear of losing the human touch. So the more we automate, the less we're able to hone those skills of empathy and critical thinking, just as you were saying. So how do you suggest organizations really continue to remain dedicated to the human touch? And what are some other soft skills that leaders should be prioritizing as we look ahead?
I think that's a great one. I think it's one of the questions that most of the organizations are struggling with today. Uh, I think today we're training our people a lot on becoming like bots. This information is here, this information is here, that information is somewhere else. Collate all of it and bring it in front of the customer. Without having to understand and using human intelligence of actually bringing in the empathy piece. So I think it's extremely critical for organizations to also change how they are looking at training their associates, because a lot of this heavy lifting can now be picked up by AI in terms of bringing in the right information in front of you. How do you use that information in terms of building that rapport with the customer? How do you quickly identify what should be my pitch? Do I need to support? Do I need to console? Do I need to empathize? Do I need to sympathize? And basically assimilate all those pieces together to try and construct a beautiful conversation with the customer. So that's where I think the organization should now focus on in specifically uplifting the soft skills of their people, rather than trying to get them, up with this information is here, that information is here, browse through 3 screens and you will get to this information. Most of the times you're just trying to grapple around where to find that information and put it in front of the customer, rather than saying that how do I have a beautiful conversation which adds value and creates a win-win for both of us.
That's great. Yeah, no, I so agree. I think those soft skills, that empathy is going to be so important as we see AI take over so many more of those low level tasks. We have another question here. Do you think
Sure.
AI presence is as much important as human presence in a company?
Uh, and I was going to cover this in the later part of the presentation, but given that this question has come out right now, AI is not the enemy and AI is here to stay. So it's going to be important for both of these ecosystems to parallelly exist. AI is not a threat. And I think a lot of wrong messaging is happening that AI is going to eat away jobs. Uh, I think organizations really need to think about how are they positioning AI within their companies. How are they making it inclusive as a part of their ecosystem? But in my opinion, both of them will equally stay and exist in this ecosystem to kind of steer the next phase of customer experience.
Yeah, I totally agree. And thank you so much for submitting your questions. Rajiv, if you want to continue on, we can move on to the next topic here.
Perfect. I think the next one is extremely important, whether AI, whether human. I think context is king. Empower agents with the insights that are really important for him to have that meaningful conversation with the customer, which is again a point that I carry forward from the previous slide that I was trying to make, right? uh, why is this helpful is because uh, this avoids or reduces the repetition on the customer end. It enables personalized and proactive service. It makes the agent feel more confident and more effective. And more often than not, I always keep telling this whenever you win a new project or you're in an existing project where you're just ramping up people or you're replacing associates because of attrition or backfill. Uh, for the associate who's just come in, it's a new organization, it's a new client, it's a new pitch, probably a new product, and probably different styles of operations. And he's already so bogged down with a lot of these ifs and buts because on a voice call you're live. And if you make any mistakes, and it'll be easily seen by the other person, and he will start making perception about you, and subconsciously it keeps on playing in your mind. That I don't need to goof up. I need to make sure that I've understood that 2 weeks or 3 weeks of training. I need to be efficient. I need to give the right answers all the time. But he's just overwhelmed with so many new things coming onto his platter. So again, if we use AI in the right way, if we bring the right context, I think it can help the advisor a lot in terms of being more competent and being more confident to manage that situation. Uh, a lot of product companies are out there who are giving in a lot of information or trying to empower associates with insights. That is the other end of the spectrum. And too much information can also be detrimental to what we are trying to achieve. Uh, and this is a classic, right? You try and start evaluate products out there in the market and say which product out there can provide me the most insights into what my customer is doing, and everyone is all gungo about more the information, the better conversation, the better personalization. But hold on a sec. Imagine if I asked you a simple question and I throw you with 100 data points and you're looking all over the screen trying to figure out which one should I use. Now, have you solved for the problem or you've created more problem is the question you need to ask yourself. You're trying to extract value out of the product that you've purchased and the pitch that was made to you. But what you need to actually understand is it even relevant for my associates to have that? Do not let AI take over human intelligence. Exist. And what I mean is that only give them information which is going to help them to personalize this, make the right choices without overloading them with excess information that is not relevant for that conversation. Because the minute you put something on the screen and it's human tendency, you want to look at everything that's coming up on your screen. And you don't want to get into that soup because that is going to again become detrimental of not having the human touch in the whole conversation. And you need to strike the right balance is in what is enough and how much of information that needs to be given. A lot of leadership groups, a lot of digital teams, a lot of IT guys want to give that information, but please make your SMEs, your people who are speaking to customers inside out, a part of that ecosystem so that they can tell you what do they really need from an insight perspective, which is going to help solve their customer problems. If you do not have them part of this ecosystem, and if you do not involve them right at the first stage when you're trying to bring in AI in your company, you're setting yourself up front for failure because people are not going to accept it. They will say, another CRM pushed onto us, another data point pushed onto us without keeping us in the loop. And irrespective of whatever you put out there, I'm not going to be using it. And there is one more important point that I will touch upon later as a part of the presentation is how can this become detrimental when you have to keep on evolving your AI journey, because this is not a once done and you're good with it, right? So it's not one and done. You typically will need to revisit this model multiple number of times. So it's extremely important for you to have the right context being passed on, select the right tool, select the right product, look at what they have to offer. It may be 100 data items, but you really don't need those 100 data items to actually bring in front of your associates to make life meaningful in terms of holding up that CX. So, those were my thoughts in terms of how do we not go overboard. At the same time, we strike the right balance between, empowering agents with the AI-driven insights. Brooke, I'll just open it up for any questions that anyone may have on this section.
Thanks, Rajiv. And again, urge people to ask questions here. I have one. So you talked just about context and how important that is for agents, but really not overwhelming them with too much because they already have so much on their plate. When we strike this balance right, and when they have the most context and the most insights, how do you see this trickling down to the customer? Does this greatly improve satisfaction?
I think today, if you ask me, the associates who've been taking hundreds of calls through the day and over the months really know what the customer wants when a particular issue lands up. If it's a refund process, they really know those 5 things that they need to ensure that they are in control of that conversation. And when you're trying to build an ecosystem which is going to guide them, it is important to make that person inclusive when you're trying to solve for a refund issue. And this insights can differ from LOB to LOB. Like I mentioned, refund, it could be for cancellation. It could be for a simple query. It could be for a technical help desk. It could be for collections. It could be for sales. So how do we ensure that we get those right pitches in front of the associate? He doesn't have to dig for information. He can hold that conversation is right available there on his screen without overloading him with information which is not required.
Okay, one more question here before we move on to the next topic. Looking ahead, what areas of BPO services do you believe will remain predominantly human-driven, even as AI continues to advance?
I think the complex queries, the medium to complex ones are pretty much here to stay. The low-hanging fruits, a lot of them would have, solved for those journeys using IVRs, decision trees. But I think you should also relook at those journeys, because if there's a faster way of getting that done, you might as well do that. And the simple example can be, I just need to block my card. But before you get onto the stage of actually blocking your card, you have to go through 10 steps. And do you really think it's worth it in today's world where you want the customer to spend that 5 minutes extra for just getting a simple thing done? There are multiple things that can be done which are outside of AI as well. You could do a mobile binding, you could do a phone number binding, you could do an application binding, you could send him an OTP to verify it, you could do voice biometrics to authenticate the customer, and it can just be completed in 2 steps. So you need to relook at those journeys. But medium to complex queries are here to stay. Even when you're talking about deflecting of medium queries, I don't think 100% of those queries will be needed to be managed by human agents. 50% can be managed by the AI and the 50% of the spill through can then be managed by a human. Because if you need to do any fact finding activity, if you need to collate some data, if you need to gather some information, all that can be done and managed using AI. And the human can then come in where the decisioning needs to be made in terms of what are the next steps and how do I close this case.
Okay, we do have one more question and then we can move on. How do we
Sure.
define the trade-off for this empowerment so that we can keep a check on the quality of service given to customers?
I think there is no fixed answer of saying that what is 60% good enough, is 20% good enough, I don't know. But depending upon the use case that you have on the table, you will need to sit down with the people who are actually managing this process inside out, get in the quality folks, get in the SMEs, understand what is really important, and then try and find out what is important for you or the insight layer to bring in front of the associate for a right conversation to happen. So there's no yardstick which will tell you that if you do it 50% you're right or 80% you're right. You will actually need to evolve this, and you can keep building it as building blocks. Uh, don't try and overwhelm with a lot of information. Just get the basic information in front and see if that's making sense or no. Do test and control groups. Uh, in the test group, experiment, and you can create multiple test groups, and you can have a control group which continues to work on the old process. See which test group is giving you the best result, and then keep expanding that group to see what is the right balance. So that's the way I would have approached it if I were to make that choice.
Thank you, Rajiv. Okay, we're good to move on to the next topic.
Perfect. So the next one is design for seamless transition, human in the loop. Extremely critical. Like I said, in the earlier conversation that I was having on the first slide, it is important to have a frictionless and a smooth transition between AI and human. If you have gathered all the information that you need to solve for the problem, do not ask for the same information, or do not build an ecosystem which doesn't transfer that data that has been collated right in front of the associate. And this is where omni-channel really needs to come to life. The human, when he's talking to the customer on the other end, needs to have all the information that was gathered prior to he jumping onto the call. And if you were to compare this with the old school way of actually doing a transfer, we used to call it, a cold transfer and a warm transfer. What was a cold transfer? A cold transfer is that you reached a department, you were speaking to an associate, he heard you for 5 minutes or she heard you for 5 minutes, and suddenly he or she realized that this is not something that I can solve for. I need you to be transferred to a different department. If I did a cold transfer, I would just be routing it to the next department. As soon as the other person answers, I hang up. In fact, I don't even wait for the other person to answer. I will just transfer it and get out. And that's what's happening with how AI is being treated right now. Vis-a-vis, the old way of transfer was also warm transfer, which means that there is a customer on the other end. There is an associate that you were speaking for 5 minutes. The associate puts the customer on hold, calls the other department associate, which is associate B, has a conversation about the customer history, speaks about it, ensures that a proper handover has happened so that the customer need not repeat, and then goes back to the old customer, tells him that I have got the associate B on the other end, I have given him the context, I am now going to be transferring your call, and if you allow, I will drop off from this call. And then customer is seamlessly connected with the associate B from a different department, who then picks it up and then starts working on it. That is what we need to do. And sometimes it's very ironical that we don't implement or don't learn from the best practices of how we were operating contact centers in the AI world also. So it is extremely critical that all of these things are critically thought through of how can you have a transfer ensuring that the customer does not have to repeat himself. It is not the problem of the AI. The problem is on who built that AI to function that way. Again, we need to apply human intelligence when you are configuring AI. AI is an offshoot of how humans think. And if you ask me, the person to blame here is not AI, and I'm assuming that AI is also a human because it's inclusive. The problem is how you did not accommodate for this when you were building a new ecosystem. And that's something that needs to be done from a seamless integration or a seamless transition, keeping the human in the loop at all times. Again, it is important to build this ecosystem by keeping your associates in the loop, of getting them excited, of saying, we're trying to make your life simpler. We're trying to bring in more assistance to you to ensure that now when you're speaking to the customer, you have a preview of what's transpired erstwhile. And that helps them build the confidence, and you are now in control of the conversation. So that's something that I wanted to essentially cover as a part of designing for a seamless transition. So Brooke, I'll again open it up for any questions in case if anyone has.
Of course. Thank you, Rajiv. So we actually found on our end from CCW Digital Research that customers are often repeating themselves across channels, and obviously that's the opposite of what we want. So although we strive for a seamless transition, it can be difficult to achieve in practice. So what insights do you have here on really achieving that connected experience?
Uh, I think the premise of achieving a connected experience needs to go back to the drawing board and saying that what CCaaS solution are you using? What omni-channel platform are you leveraging? Does it have the ability to integrate with your channels of communication? And that's the starting point to kind of pick this up. It's more to be solved at a technical level in terms of bringing in the light platform that is going to be able to solve for this. And there are umpteen number of solutions which are available out there in the market who provide this. You will need to figure out which one fits the bill, which one solves for your purpose without having to disrupt your existing ecosystem, so that this handover can happen seamlessly. So you will need to take a guided call in terms of how can you start in terms of building those journeys. Important to first zero down on what CCaaS solution do you want to go in, because you already have a running ecosystem with a telephony, an ACD, a CRM, a chat platform, and multiple other things bolt on top of it, which is super light and that can still give you the desired outcome. And you will need to actually, before even making a choice on that, I think it's important for to also consult people who are in this space. And sometimes it's a simple fix without you having to do anything. Because you may already have a platform that solves for it, but you've never explored that thing because you've never been using it. And that's again one more most critical advice that I would like to give is, because you're running your processes inside out, day in and day out, you're held up in a chaotic environment, you're trying to solve problems, you're trying to solve issues, you sometimes cannot figure out what's the obvious answer to the problem. And trust me, the answer to the most difficult problem in the life, or in terms of solutioning, is extremely simple. But because you're so bogged down with what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, it just doesn't come right in front of you, even if it's right there. So that's a long answer, but I think that's important for organizations to kind of consider before making that call.
Yeah, that's great insight. So we are good to move on to the next topic here.
Perfect. I think the next is one of the most critical one and one of my favorites in terms of how can you bring in personalization beyond the name. And let's take each one of us as an example, right? So uh, say for example, you're just walking into a restaurant where you had been there 5 months ago. Imagine right at the reception, even if it was not the same manager that greeted you or at the concierge desk, the minute the person put in your mobile number or got in your first name, and is able to understand what happened with you in the restaurant in terms of your order, where were you seated, who was serving you, what were your preferences. And the minute that person starts talking about that, you feel, wow, that's personalization, that's customer experience. This guy or this restaurant really knows how to keep their customers happy. And you're just overjoyed and overwhelmed, saying that I really need to come here often because they've got my loyalty here. And that's exactly what you need to replicate when you're talking about true personalization. Uh, just addressing a person by the name or last name is not personalization, is not human centric experience, is not uh, what the customer expects in terms of saying that you really made it special for me. uh, what you really need to do is understand that and make the customer feel valued, so that you can gain their loyalty. You can kind of buy in his attention right at the beginning, so that even if something would have gone wrong that day or probably took a little more time or there was a delay, he will ignore that and say that they probably tried their best and this was the best turnaround time that they could solve my problem for. And that's where you need to leverage AI just beyond giving you the name, in terms of how can you personalize that pitch, or how can you personalize that conversation, or how can you bring that element of saying that we really value you as our customers. A lot of organizations often put that as a big wide statement on the front of their webpage, saying that we value our customers. And the minute they have an interaction with someone at the contact center or anywhere else, that just goes down the drain. So if you really want to live up to that commitment that you put out there, I think it's extremely important for you to leverage the power and the might of what data can do in terms of bringing in that extra layer of customization and hyper personalization that our customers are really looking for. And if I can remember your preferences, if I know how you're behaving, if I know your spending pattern, if I know what your thought process is, if I can predict your buying journey, I think, who doesn't want to know that? Because you are able to then position, cross sell, upsell, build customer loyalty, reduce churn, and do all of that at the back of having that insightful information right at the fingertip. So that's pretty much in terms of saying that personalization is going to be key. It is not just the name; it is understanding how the customer interacted with your brand, how the customer felt about your brand, and what did you do to make sure that his experience is wow. A customer may have had a bad experience, but purely by being out there, staying with him through the journey, getting him through that difficult time, can truly mean that's what organizations need to look at when they're trying to use AI or leverage AI to bring in that. I think I'll open it up for any questions in terms of this section, but that's essentially the message that I wanted to pass on.
Really great insight. I so agree. I think personalization is such an important topic today because that's really what customers are looking for. They want that curated, personalized touch. And as we're talking about, losing that human touch, I think personalization is such a great way to achieve it with AI and with technology, because it doesn't just have to be a human connection. I think we can facilitate and use technology to build those connections as well. So anyone feel free to submit any questions here on personalization. I have one here. So obviously personalization is critical, but we found in some of our research that some leaders are actually kind of unsure of the true definition of personalization in 2025. So what would you say are some of the most critical, essential components of a personalized interaction today?
What I would look at it specifically in 2025 in terms of personalization is, do you really know the lifetime value of your customer? Uh, and if you just answered that one question, I think you can personalize it to a great extent. If there is a customer who has a low lifetime value, how can you make him shift from there to an upper spectrum? Or if he's an average, how can you bring him to the top spectrum? That's where the organizations will need to focus and use the personalization data to take it to the next level. If someone is already having a great lifetime value with your organization today, you definitely know that he's a promoter and he constantly can increase his wallet share with you. So that can be great in terms of trying to drive those discussions. Again, this is one of the personalization characteristics or parameters that organizations need to look at, depending upon the use case, depending upon the industry, depending upon where you are and what you're trying to do. It may differ a little, but in my mind, if you are able to gather lifetime value of a customer, you really know what you need to do with them to create that wow experience.
Okay, so no more questions here. We can move on to the final topic.
Absolutely. Okay, that brings me to the last point. As a as what we discussed at the start of the presentation is continuous learning and feedback loops. This is not one and done. How can human oversight and training for AI will need to be done continuously? We will need to make it smarter. We will need to fill it with more prompts. We will need to improvise how they are interacting, how the responses even of AI are coming. And I'm just thinking out loud as I'm, putting this thought out is you could actually, gamify the entire training of the AI ecosystem. And what I mean is that it can become almost like an added thing for an associate to do of how can he actually train the AI better. And he becomes the tutor and the AI is the student. And how can you reward the tutor, which is the associate, for training it in the right fashion of evolving the knowledge base of an AI? You can build in checker, you can build in a maker checker to ensure that the right amount of training is going back, and those are the guardrails you need to build a thing. But I think it's a great way of saying that how can you leverage your associates to improve the contextual knowledge that exists within the AI ecosystem to take it to the next level, rather than someone from outside coming and trying to train it who does not have the context of what you're trying to do in your parlance. So I think it's extremely important to have a continuous learning and a feedback mechanism of how can we continuously keep evolving the model so that the next time if someone interacts, it is far more smarter, far more intelligent, far more capable of doing that. And this cannot be done by an individual. It will need to be the entire workforce coming together, believing in it, trying to evolve this ecosystem, and working hand in glove to build a better future experience. So that's in terms of how I would like to look at the continuous learning and the feedback looping.
Okay, so final opportunity for questions. Please feel free to submit any questions you have for really any of the topics that we talked about today. I know we covered a lot, but I think there's so much to talk about when it comes to AI and the human touch, and we're all working to strike this balance in a perfect way, and it's not easy. So one question here. Someone wanted you to clear up a confusion that they had. Is AI training humans a want or a need? I think that's the question.
I'd like to look at it a little differently. I don't think AI, in a way, AI is aiding humans with information that a human can possibly not comprehend or bring to life in few seconds when you are on a live call or when you are on a live interaction. Again, it is very critical to understand that when you're building an AI ecosystem, do not take away the human intelligence out of an associate. Only provide information that can help him to steer the conversation in the right direction. So AI will never take over humans unless you hard code it that way that I will make the AI superpower and human the menial. That is a bad strategy and should not be done. if you're able to aid humans in this journey to bring the information that can help him get the conversation in the right direction, that's the way to look at it.
Okay, another question here. Do you have any AI best practices for quality assurance?
Uh, there are quite a lot of best practices in quality assurance. One of the most critical ones, and again, a lot of people have invested in automated quality assurance, trying to automate a tick mark activity of saying whether this was done yes, this was done no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, and it gives a score. Uh, that's a wrong way of doing quality assurance. You will not be able to get the right sentiment. You will not be able to get the best output with this. It will give you an output which is probably more or less there, but it will still be 15 to 20% off. We really need to bring the contextual aspect of the call into the ecosystem. And like I said, you will need to get into the behavioral play of how the interaction is going beyond converting a speech to text and trying to drive it. This space is still evolving. There are not too many companies who have done a huge amount of R&D on understanding the behavior of a customer, but there are a few that are doing that. We as an organization are working with some of them to see how we can try and build and get uh, providing just a tick mark activity and actually bring in the context of how the conversation actually going.
Okay. One last question I have here, unless anyone wants to submit any more. So you talked a little bit about AI training, feedback loops, things like that. Do you see this becoming a new role for the agent? I know you talked a little bit about that, but how will it actually change contact center workflows as we look ahead to the future?
So yes, the answer to that question is yes, it's going to be a new rule for the agent. And let me give you an example that we stumbled upon, right? So there are these content moderation companies which are, working out there, and millions and zillions of videos are getting uploaded across social media platforms, right? TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Reels, and whatnot, right? Uh, a lot of this work is now being staged with AI, but the training of these models is happening outside of the organizations that are actually doing this work. Organizations who are already doing the content moderation will need to adopt the learning part also into their ecosystem and make it as an added responsibility of the human or the associate, so that they are able to train the models and that way also build a parallel workforce which can now train AI models. So that's how it is going to evolve for organizations who are in this space. And if you don't, someone else is going to come and create a training institute of training those AI models.
All right. I think
So
that's everything.
I hope that answers the question, bro.
Yes, I think that was a great insight and point there.
I
Okay,
just
so
had a couple of thoughts to share.
yeah, go for it.
Sorry, I just had a couple of thoughts to share. The goal isn't to choose between AI and humans, it's to find the sweet spot. The synergy where AI handles or does the heavy lifting, allowing humans to actually truly shine and deliver empathetic experience and memorable experience for your clients. And one more fun fact about us, don't panic, our human touch is still under warranty. So at any point in time, should you have more questions, please feel free to reach out with us. I promise you it won't be an AI responding to that. It'll be one of us responding. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rajiv. I so appreciate your time and sharing all of your insight. And thank you all to everyone on the call today. This is such an important topic. I think, as I mentioned before, AI is such a huge piece of the contact center space right now. So, figuring out how it fits in, what are some of those next steps, and how we're going to leverage the technology in a way that both supports our employees and our customers is so important. So thank you so much, Rajiv. I so appreciate you joining us.
Thank you so much. Pleasure's all mine. Cheers, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye.